1, 1 through 3.
You don't have to do all that stuff. We can just read it.
There once was a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity. He feared God and stayed away from evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. He owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He also had many servants. He was, in fact, the richest person in that entire area.
One day the members of the heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord, and the accuser, whom some call Satan, came with them. "Where have you come from?" the Lord asked the accuser. The accuser answered the Lord, "I have been patrolling the earth, watching everything that's going on." Then the Lord asked the accuser, "Have you noticed my servant Job? He is the finest man in all the earth. He is blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God and stays away from evil." The accuser replied to the Lord, "Yes, but Job has a good reason to fear God. You have always put a wall of protection around him and his home and his property. You have made him prosper in everything that he does. Look how rich he is. But reach out and take away everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said, "All right, you may test him. Do whatever you want with everything he possesses, but don't harm him physically."
So one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting at the oldest brother's house, a messenger arrived at Job's home with some news. "The Sabaeans have raided us. They stole all the animals, killed all the farm hands. I'm the only one who made it out to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived with the news. "The fire of God has fallen from heaven and burned up your sheep and all shepherds. I'm the only one who escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, a third messenger arrived with the news. "3 bands of Chaldean raiders have stolen your camels and killed all your servants. I'm the only one who escaped to tell you." It always happens in threes, right? Not here. While he was still speaking, another messenger arrived with this news. "Your sons and your daughters were feasting in their oldest brother's home. Suddenly a powerful wind swept in from the wilderness and hit the house on all sides. The house collapsed, and all your children are dead. I'm the only one who escaped to tell you." So Job stood up and tore his robe in grief. Then he shaved his head and fell to the ground to worship. He fell to the ground to worship. I thought Job was all about doubt and confusion and anger at God. A lot of us have grown up thinking that. But if he can worship after all that, something else is going on. I know people in this community. I mean, you come here for Christmas, you come here for Easter, all hell breaks loose in your life. You come here a lot more. I know people in this community who, just the worst things that could possibly happen to them. Morning after it, they're right here. Why? Same feeling somehow in Job's heart. First of all, before we get into all that, chapter 1. Has anyone tried to read Job? A few of you. Charlene, do you like the first chapter? No, of course not. No one likes the first chapter. Most of us who read Job, you get to the first chapter and you think, this is terrible. This is a terrible story, all this gambling over life. And that's a terrible idea. I completely understand how someone could never get further into the book if you can't deal with the frame of the story to get to the point of the story, if there's a point. So let's deal with this frame of the story, chapter 1 first. The opening chapter is not describing an enlightened view of God. I'll go further because I'm the guy who gets to say things further. Chapter 1 is not describing a biblical image of God. It is intentionally setting up a bad idea of God as this divine puppeteer, an idea that we are invited to reject so that we can choose a better idea of God. This is kind of, you have to get to this point before you can get anything else from Job. All that Satan and God gambling over your suffering is not the message. Do you watch Star Wars to cheer on Darth Vader? No. The point of Star Wars is you see Darth Vader and you say, that's a dummy, so I'm going to cheer you. That leads you to cheer more for Luke Skywalker. Chapter 1 is the Darth Vader of this book. The nonsense of chapter 1 comes from this ancient idea that the gods, plural, lowercase g, gods, which no one believes anymore. That comes from this ancient idea from Rome and Greece and Persia and all over. I mean, you can list your religions that have this. You've heard this idea. The gods are fickle and they're mean and they have fun playing with us. Does anyone believe that anymore? No, we don't. So, unless you're angry at God and stuck on this idea that it's God's fault that you're suffering, you pretty much easily get rid of this idea that the gods are fickle when they play with us. But back then, a lot of people did believe in that the gods played with us and were mean. So the book of Job opens with this idea as a rhetorical device so that we can all see how dumb it is. Are you with me? Okay. And that's a lot like today. A lot of churches aren't as full as we are today. A lot of churches around the country are just emptying as they go because the churches exclude people and hate people and prop up hate and is not doing what God wants, and which implies people are leaving churches because they think God's not really at those churches, which implies that the people who are leaving have this idea of what God should be doing, of what God means, of what God intends, and it's not happening over there. And so they reject anything wrapped up with exclusion and hypocrisy. Does that make sense? Yeah. Same thing going on with Job. You are not supposed to like chapter 1 because within the story, once we get past that, that's going to resonate a lot more with who God is, with who we are, with how we're supposed to relate to God. Within the story, within your life, the simple fact of Job and us grappling for reasons, scrambling at the unfairness of life, searching and asking, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen today? That's as old as humankind. That is as true as any experience that you've ever had. So the point of Job, if there's a point, is not the one bad idea that some people had one time. The point, if there is a point, is an eternal truth that all people, all the time, seem to share. Life is hard, and we deal with it in all kinds of ways. Some of them good, some of them bad. Hopefully we get to a point where we can deal with that by trusting God more. Does that sound true? Nod your heads louder. Does that sound easy? So we're going to listen a little closer to Job's feelings about what's so hard about that. But first, to let that sink in, that it's true, but it's not easy. We're going to hear John sing this little song about chaos.
So the accuser left the Lord's presence, and he struck Job with terrible boils from head to foot. Job scraped his skin with a piece of broken pottery as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, "Aren't you still trying to maintain your integrity? Just curse God and die."
But Job replied, "You talk like a foolish woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad?" So in all this, Job said nothing wrong.
When 3 of Job's friends heard of the tragedy he had suffered, they got together and traveled from their homes to comfort and console him. They sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to Job, for they saw that his suffering was too great for words.
Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant my desire. I wish he would crush me. I wish he would reach out his hand and kill me.
I cannot keep from speaking. I must express my anguish. My bitter soul must complain. I hate my life and don't want to go on living. Oh, leave me alone for my few remaining days.
Then one of Job's friends said to him, "How long are you going to go on like this? You sound like a howling wind. Do you really think that God twists justice?" And Job responded, "Even if I was right, I wouldn't have a defense. I could only plead for mercy."
I am disgusted with my life. Let me complain freely. My bitter soul must complain. I will say to God, don't simply condemn me. Tell me the charge you are bringing against me. What do you gain by oppressing me? Why do you reject me, the work of your own hands, while smiling on the schemes of the wicked?
God, remember that you made me from dust. Will you turn me back to dust so soon? You clothed me with skin and flesh, and you knit my bones together and my sinews. You gave me life and showed me your unfailing love. My life was preserved by your care.
Why did you even deliver me from my mother's womb? Why didn't you let me die at my birth? It would be as though I'd never existed, going directly from the womb to the grave. I have only a few days left, so leave me alone. God, leave me alone that I might have a moment of comfort before I leave, never to return for a land of darkness and utter gloom.
Immortal, born of woman, few of days and full of trouble. We blossom like a flower and then wither. Like a passing shadow, we quickly disappear.
Another friend replied to Job, can a person really do anything to help God? Can even a wise person be at all helpful to him? Is it any advantage to the Almighty if you are righteous? Would it be any gain to him if you were perfect? And Job said defensively, but God knows where I am going, and when God tests me, I will come out as pure as gold.
But my heart is troubled and restless. Days of suffering torment me. I walk in gloom without sunlight. I stand in the public square and cry for help. Instead, I'm considered a brother to jackals and a companion to owls. My skin has turned dark and my bones burn with fever. My harp plays sad music, and my flute accompanies those who weep. So what resonated in there? What lines did you hear, that you've said, that you've felt, that you've heard others feel? Kind of want to go. What else?
The flower.
Withering. Starts out with Job and his wife. The one person who's supposed to support him, the one person who has pledged to stand beside him. And she says, what are you doing? So often, the friends get thrown under the bus. First of all, they came and spent 7 days with him, just sitting with him, which is exactly what we want. No one wants anyone to talk to him, but it wore on them. And so there they are, trying to give them advice, just like we've done, all of us have done for our friends. We've all been there, been the one. First we try to sit, we try to eat, we try to distract, we try to do anything. But at some point, well, what if you do this? What if you think it this way? And you know you get it stuck in your own head as you're going through whatever you're going through. This isn't right. God hasn't planned this. God messed up. I swear I don't deserve this because I didn't do the thing to make me deserve this. And the only response to you yelling at that is echoes of the lonely wall. And sometimes we get through the whole crisis. We get through that whole crisis, and we're not to the end of the book yet. We get to the whole crisis, and what lesson did we learn? Nothing. We're left with just life is hard. We're sharply reminded that we are not in control, which maybe is the lesson, which maybe means we have to do a better job of letting go, which is probably my own personal nightmare. Maybe we remember at the end of it that God is in control. It's just not how we want God to be in control. Because we want to be in control. And if we have a God, when we're in control, we want God to be our personal bubble wrap God. When we're in trouble, God wraps us up in a little bubble, does everything we want to keep us safe, which isn't any more true than God being fickle and mean. We want it to be true, but it leads to nothing but disappointment until we come up with a different, deeper sense of faith in God. Job was continuously disappointed, not because he didn't believe. He believed. He believed in God consistently. He worshipped. He prayed. He believed. He urged others to believe. But his faith was in a bubble-wrapped God. And he was so constantly disappointed. So the point of Job, if there is a point, it's not about doubt and questions and why is there suffering. It's more about moving from a simple faith. Simple faith being, I can't do it, and I'm panicking, and where's my God button that I can push for help? It's about moving from there to a more real, we've all been through life faith. I can't do it alone, so I need some help. I'm panicking, so I need something stronger than me. How can I find and rest in something stronger than me. Job is not about, I believe that God exists, so I deserve help. Job is about, I don't know. My heart calls out to something. See, the structure of the book, when I read it, and I've read this a handful of times, and every time I read it, something new comes up. Something new if you read it. Something new would come up that I hadn't seen. The structure of the book this week, I realized it's kind of like a horror movie. Some of you don't like horror movies. Some of you do like them. You're weird. But like the point of a horror movie is you're sitting there and you're watching these people, and they're walking along, and like the guy is right there behind him, and you're yelling at the television screen, no, don't go that way. There's someone behind you. There's a better way to go. And when you're reading Job, you're supposed to hear Job's responses through all of this pain and say, no, don't say that. No, there's a better way. God, there's someone helping. Go out that way. And when we're stuck in it, we can't hear it any better than the person on the screen. But Job's mistakes are bringing out your wisdom about a better God, a better you, and a better faith. And when you're sitting in your pew, safe and sound, that might make a lot of sense. Job, don't say that. Job, watch out for real life. God is lurking around the corner to help. We're supposed to be one step ahead, Job. We're supposed to understand a deeper trust, cleaner tears, more grace. We're supposed to understand a balm to soothe our sin-sick soul.
Then the Lord answered Job from a whirlwind. Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Who determined its dimensions and stretched out the surveying line?
Who kept the sea?
Have you ever commanded the morning to appear and caused the dawn to rise
Have you
in
explored the
peace?
springs?
Have you visited the storehouses of the snow or seen the storehouses of
Can
hail?
you direct the
Who
movement
gives
of the
intuition
stars?
to the heart,
Finding
instinct
the
to
clutch
the
of
mind?
Pleiades, or loosing the
Have
cords
you given
of
the horse
lion?
its strength or
You
clothed
know
its
when the
neck
wild
with
goats give
flowing
birth?
mane?
Have you watched the deer born in the wild?
Then the Lord said to Job, do you still want to argue with the Almighty? You are God's critic, but do you have the answer?
Then Job replied to the Lord, I am nothing. How could I ever find the answer? I will cover my mouth with my hand. I have said too much already. I have nothing more to say.
And the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind, brace yourself again, like a man, because I still have some more questions for you, and you have to answer these. Will you discredit my justice and condemn me just to prove you are right?
God said, consider the crocodile god, Leviathan. Can you catch it with a hook, or put a noose around its jaws? Can you tie it with a rope through the nose, or pierce its jaw with a spike? Will the crocodile god beg you for mercy, or implore you for pity? Will it agree to work for you, to be your slave for life? Can you make a pet like a bird, or give it to your little girls to play with?
Then Job replied to the Lord, I know you can do anything and no one can stop you. You asked, who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorance? It is I. And I was talking about things I knew nothing about, things far too wonderful for me.
When Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes. In fact, the Lord gave him twice as much as before. Then all his brothers and sisters and former friends came and feasted with him in his home, and they consoled him and comforted him because of all the trials the Lord had brought against him. And each of them brought him a gift of money and a gold ring. So the Lord blessed Job in the second half of his life, even more than in the beginning. For now he had 14,000 sheep and 6,000 camels and 1,000 teams of oxen and 1,000 female donkeys. He also gave Job 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. In all the land no women were as lovely as the daughters of Job, and their father put them into his will along with their brothers. Job lived 140 years after that, living to see 4 generations of his children and grandchildren, and then he died, an old man who had lived a long, full life. right at the end, Job prayed for his friends. And the Lord returned his fortunes. His first, they come to sit with him. I'm going to steal that. And they started giving advice, which wasn't as awesome. Didn't help. That's nothing we haven't done. And then Job, because he was so stressed, not because his friends were bad, because he was so filled with anxiety, he pushed his friends away. And the first thing he does after his heart is getting right with God is to pray for them. What does he pray? Does he forgive them? Does he apologize to them? How does he bring them back into his life? In the process of this book, step 1, I'm not in control. I thought I was. I hoped I was. I'm not in control. Step 2, God is in control, even if I don't like what's happening. Step 3, okay, God, I know you can do anything. I'm giving it to you. Step 4, I'm going to admit to myself I was doing things I didn't understand. Step 5, I'm going to admit to you I was doing things that I didn't understand. Step 6, get ready to release all the junk that holds me back. Step 7, ask God for help to release all that junk. Some of you are seeing where we're going. Step 8, make a list of the people we've harmed. Step 9, make amends to the people we've harmed by praying for your friends. Be pushed away from grief. You see where we're going? 3 more steps. Some of you know 3 more steps really tightly. Job is not a story of addiction, but it is a story of recovery. It's recovery from the pain of life. Which isn't easy, but it does work. So what else do these last chapters tell us? I think it's important at the end, right at the end. I bet all of you missed this. Job wrote, who got the will? Who got in the will?
His daughters.
First time in the history of humankind that has happened. Never in ancient Chinese literature, never in Israel, never in the Middle East, never in the oral traditions of Native Americans, never at this point in the history of the world has a woman, a daughter, been written into a will. It's almost as though when someone goes through so much pain, they come out willing to be more graceful. They come out saying, all the stuff the world tells me about who deserves what, I don't really listen to deserves anymore. I just want to love what I love. As terrible as crisis might be, it seems to shape us to care about the world in a new way. Most important, if there's a point of Job, this point of Job is not a fairy tale ending when he gets back twice as much as he lost. I wish suffering worked that way. I wish that it's always that way, but it's not. You know that. Chapter 42 is the other side of this frame from chapter 1. Once again, this silly idea that so many people have believed that if we do just right, God will reward us. That's not always how it works. Sometimes it does, but we get a lot of pain. And you know all too well the lessons of cancer don't meet up with the lessons and the pain of the cancer. You know all too well the suffering makes you so disoriented that the reorientation doesn't seem to be worth it. You know all too well that the most holy we can be is just to sit with the pain, weak enough to rely on God's strength. You know as holy as we can be is to trust vulnerability, particularly when it's hardest to trust. You know, like Job, that the most holy we can be is admitting that we are human. And if there's a point to Job, that's it. We're human. Welcome to life.